You ever sit across from an empty chair long enough that it starts to feel personal? Marcus Reed checked his watch again, though he already knew the time. 7:42 p.m. The second hand kept moving like nothing mattered. The coffee in front of him had gone cold 20 minutes ago, a thin skin forming on top, untouched. He didn't stir it, didn't sip it, just watched it like it might explain something if he waited long enough. The cafe was small, the kind of place where people talked low and laughed easy, where couples leaned in across tables and didn't notice the world outside. Marcus noticed everything. The scrape of a chair 2 tables over. The hiss of milk steaming behind the counter. The soft chime every time the door opened. He looked up each time. Not hopeful, just automatic. No one walked in looking for him. His phone sat face up beside his hand. The last message still there. On my way. Traffic's crazy LOL. Sent 36 minutes ago. He didn't text back. Not because he was angry. Because he'd learned something about silence. It told you more than words ever did. A waitress passed by, slowed just enough to glance at the empty seat across from him. You still expecting someone, hon? Marcus gave a small nod, the kind that didn't fully commit. Yeah. His voice was calm. Steady. She gave a polite smile, the kind people give when they already know the answer. Let me know if you need anything. He nodded again. Didn't say thank you. Didn't say anything. The chair across from him stayed empty. Marcus leaned back slightly, eyes drifting to the window. Outside, headlights slid across the glass like passing thoughts. People walked by with places to be, someone waiting, something certain. He let out a slow breath. This was a mistake. Not the woman. Not the app. The idea. The idea that maybe, just maybe, life had room for something beyond work shifts and school pickups and packing lunches at 6 a.m. He rubbed his thumb along the edge of the table. Worn wood. Smooth in some places. Rough in others. Like most things that lasted. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded receipt, placed enough cash to cover the coffee, and a little extra. Not generous. Just respectful. Then he stood. No rush. No drama. Just a decision. He picked up his phone, slipped it into his pocket, and adjusted the strap of his worn backpack resting against the chair leg. For a moment, he looked at the empty seat one last time. Not with anger. Not even disappointment. Just clarity. He turned toward the door. The bell chimed as it opened. Cool air brushed against his face. And then it happened. The sound came first. Sharp. Measured. Heels on tile. Not rushed. Not hesitant. Certain. The room shifted in a way that didn't need words. Conversations softened. Eyes lifted without meaning to. Marcus paused, hand still on the door. He didn't turn right away. Something in the air changed. Then he did. She stood just inside the entrance, scanning the room with a gaze that didn't ask for permission. Tailored coat. Hair pulled back like control itself. Presence that didn't try. Didn't need to. Victoria Hale. He recognized her before his mind caught up. Not from this place. From somewhere else entirely. Somewhere with glass walls and quiet tension, and people who spoke carefully when she walked in. She stepped forward, heels echoing once, twice, then stopping. Right at his table. Her eyes landed on him like she had expected him all along. No hesitation. No question. Just certainty. And then she said it. Sorry I'm late. Marcus didn't move. Didn't sit. Didn't smile. The words hung between them. Simple on the surface, but carrying something heavier underneath. His fingers tightened slightly on the door handle. He looked at her. Really looked this time. And in that quiet, suspended moment, something didn't make sense. Because the woman standing in front of him wasn't just a stranger. She was his boss. Marcus did not sit back down. Not yet. His hand remained on the door, fingers resting against the cool metal as if it could steady something inside him that had just shifted without warning. Victoria Hale stood there like she belonged everywhere and nowhere at the same time, her expression unreadable, her posture effortless. She did not glance at the empty chair across from his table. She did not check a phone. She did not explain herself. She simply looked at him, waiting, as if the next move was his to make. Marcus let the silence stretch. He had learned to live inside silence. It did not rush him. It did not scare him. It revealed people. You have the wrong table, he said finally, his voice even, low, controlled. No edge. No challenge. Just fact. Victoria's gaze did not flicker. No, she said. I do not. Another pause. Shorter this time. Marcus studied her face, searching for something that would make sense of this. A hint of humor. A mistake. Anything that would turn this into something simple. There was nothing simple about Victoria Hale. He exhaled slowly and released the door. It closed behind him with a soft click. The sound felt final in a way he did not expect. He stepped back toward the table, but did not sit. Not yet. This is not a meeting, he said. And I am off the clock. Victoria's eyes softened for half a second. Not warmth. Not kindness. Something closer to recognition. I know, she replied. Then, quieter. That is why I am here. Marcus frowned slightly. Not confusion. Calculation. He had seen her in conference rooms where people twice his salary chose their words like stepping stones. He had seen her walk past him in hallways without slowing down, her attention already 3 decisions ahead of everyone else in the building. She did not waste time. She did not explain herself. And she did not show up late to anything. Until now. The chair across from him remained empty. Waiting. Victoria glanced at it briefly, then back at him. Sit, she said. Not sharp. Not loud. Just certain. Marcus did not move. Not as your employee, she added. The words landed differently. Not heavier. Clearer. Marcus let out a quiet breath through his nose, then pulled the chair out slowly and sat. Not fully relaxed. Not guarded either. Just present. Victoria took the seat across from him, placing her phone face down on the table without checking it. That alone felt out of place. The waitress approached cautiously, sensing something she could not name. Can I get you anything? She asked. Victoria did not look at the menu. Black coffee, she said. Then after a beat, same as his. Marcus glanced at his cup. Cold. Untouched. He said nothing. The waitress nodded and walked away. Silence returned, but it was different now. Thicker. Intentional. Victoria leaned back slightly, studying him in a way that felt less like judgment and more like assessment. Marcus met her gaze without flinching. He had nothing to prove. Not here. Not to her. You were leaving, she said. Marcus nodded once. Yeah. Why? Simple question. No decoration. Marcus shrugged lightly. Because waiting stops meaning something after a while. Victoria's eyes held his. Something shifted there. Small. Almost invisible. And yet, she said, you stayed longer than most would. Marcus looked down at the table for a moment, thumb brushing that same worn edge again. I had time, he said. Then he looked back up. That does not mean I give it away for free. The corner of Victoria's mouth moved. Not quite a smile. Not quite anything else. The coffee arrived, steam rising in thin curls between them. Neither of them reached for it. For a moment, the world outside the table disappeared. No office. No hierarchy. No titles. Just 2 people sitting across from each other, neither one fully understood by the other. And for the first time since she walked in, Victoria did not speak right away. She simply watched him, as if she was trying to understand something she could not measure. Victoria finally reached for her coffee, fingers wrapping around the cup, but not lifting it, as if the warmth alone was enough to hold on to for a second longer. Marcus noticed that. People like her did not pause without purpose. You do not usually wait, he said. It was not a question. Victoria glanced up. Neither do you, she replied. The corner of his brow tightened slightly, not defensive, just aware. She continued, her voice quieter now, less corporate, more human than he had ever heard it. You leave before you are dismissed. You clock out on time. You do not linger in rooms that are not yours. Marcus leaned back a fraction, studying her again. You have been watching me? He asked. Victoria shook her head once. I notice patterns, she said. That is different. He let that sit. It felt true in a way he could not argue with. Across the café, a chair scraped loudly as someone stood up too fast, laughter following it, light and careless. Marcus's eyes flicked there for a second, then back to her. So what is this? He asked. Because it is not a date. Victoria did not answer right away. She traced the rim of the cup with her thumb, slow, deliberate. It was supposed to be, she said finally. Marcus did not react, not outwardly, but something in his stillness sharpened. You, he asked. Not disbelief. Clarification. Victoria met his gaze directly. The profile was mine. The words landed clean. No apology attached. No explanation trailing behind. Just truth. Marcus looked at her for a long second, then leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on the table, hands loosely clasped. And you just decided to show up as my boss instead? He said. Victoria shook her head again, slower this time. I did not plan to come at all. There it was. The part that mattered. Marcus nodded once, almost to himself. That makes more sense. Victoria's eyes narrowed just slightly, not in offense, but in curiosity. Does it? Marcus gave a small shrug. Yeah. People with options do not show up to things they do not need. He did not say it with bitterness. Just observation. Victoria absorbed that, her gaze dropping briefly to the table before returning to him. I was in the car, she said. About 10 minutes away. Marcus said nothing. She continued. I almost turned around. A beat passed. Actually, I did. That caught his attention. Not enough to interrupt. Just enough to listen differently. So why are you here? He asked. Victoria exhaled slowly, the first sign of something less controlled slipping through. Not weakness. Just honesty without structure. Because I realized something, she said. Marcus waited. She held his gaze, steady but softer now. I have spent years choosing rooms where I already know how everything ends. The cafe noise faded again, like it understood it was not needed. And tonight, she added, I did not. Marcus looked at her, really looked this time, not as the woman who signed off on budgets and decisions that shaped his workdays, but as someone sitting across from him without armor. For once, he tapped his fingers lightly against the table, a quiet rhythm, thinking. Then he asked, and what did you expect? Victoria's lips parted slightly, then closed again as if the answer was not ready to be spoken out loud. She glanced at the empty chair beside him, then back at him. Not this, she said. Marcus let out a soft breath, almost a laugh, but not quite. Yeah, he said. Me neither. And for the first time since she walked in, something unspoken settled between them. Not comfort, not trust, something quieter, something that did not need to be named yet. Marcus let the silence breathe instead of filling it. He picked up his coffee this time, took a small sip, then set it back down without breaking eye contact. It was still bitter, still warm, not as cold as before. So you turned around, he said. Came back. Sat down. Victoria nodded once. Yes. That is not something people like you do, he added. It was not an accusation, just a line drawn in truth. Victoria tilted her head slightly, studying him again, but this time there was less distance in her gaze. People like me, she repeated quietly. Marcus did not flinch. People who do not need to explain themselves, he said. People who are used to being early, or not showing up at all. A faint exhale escaped her, almost like a quiet acknowledgement. Not denial, not agreement. Something in between. You are not wrong, she said. The words settled between them, heavier than before, because she let them. Marcus leaned back again, his posture relaxed but grounded, like he had nothing to gain and nothing to lose at the same time. Then why me, he asked. Not curiosity. Precision. Victoria's fingers stilled on the edge of her cup. That question did not come with an easy answer. For a moment, she looked past him, toward the window where the city kept moving without noticing either of them. Then she looked back. Because you did not try, she said. Marcus frowned slightly. Try what? Victoria's voice lowered, almost blending into the hum of the room. To be seen. That landed differently. Marcus's expression did not change much, but something behind it shifted. He leaned forward just a little. Elbows on the table again. I show up, he said. That is enough. Victoria watched him closely. For you, she replied. Not for most people. Marcus gave a small shake of his head. Most people are busy performing, he said. I do not have time for that. A pause. Then, quieter. I have a daughter waiting for me at home. The words were simple, but they changed the air. Victoria's eyes softened again, more noticeably this time. Not out of pity, out of something closer to understanding. How old? She asked. 8, Marcus said. 3rd grade. Loves science. Hates mornings. A faint, almost invisible smile touched his face, then disappeared just as quickly. Victoria noticed it. She did not comment on it. Does she know you are here? She asked. Marcus shook his head. No. She thinks I am picking up an extra shift tonight. Victoria looked down at her coffee again, then back at him. And instead, she said, you waited for someone who did not come. Marcus shrugged lightly. That happens, he said. Not everything shows up when it is supposed to. The words hung there, quiet but sharp. Victoria held his gaze, and for a second, something in her composure cracked. Not visibly. Not enough for anyone else in the room to notice. But Marcus saw it. He did not react. He just let it exist. Across the cafe, a small clatter broke the moment. A glass tipping over, water spreading across a table near the corner. A child's startled voice followed. soft and uncertain. Conversations paused, then resumed just as quickly. People glanced over, then looked away. It was not their problem. Marcus did not hesitate. He stood up, already reaching for a stack of napkins from a nearby counter before anyone else moved. He walked over, crouched slightly to the child's level, voice low, calm, steady. "Hey, it is okay," he said. "We can fix this." The child nodded, eyes wide but trusting. Marcus wiped the table carefully, slow enough not to rush, fast enough to matter. He handed the child a dry napkin, a small nod of reassurance. Then he stood and returned to his seat like it was nothing. No performance. No expectation. Victoria had not moved. She had watched the entire thing without blinking. And when Marcus sat back down, she did not speak right away. She just looked at him differently, like she was seeing something she had not planned to find. Marcus sat down like nothing had happened, pulling his chair in with a soft scrape that barely registered against the background noise of the cafe. He reached for his coffee again, took another sip, and set it down in the same spot as before. No shift in posture. No sign that he expected anything in return. Across from him, Victoria did not move right away. Her eyes stayed on him, not in the way she watched employees during meetings, not measuring, not calculating. This was different. Quieter. Slower. "You did not have to do that," she said finally. Marcus shrugged once. "It was right there," he replied. "So I handled it." Victoria's gaze flicked briefly toward the corner where the child now sat calmly, the table clean, the moment already fading into something small and forgettable for everyone else. Then she looked back at him. "No one else moved," she said. Marcus leaned back slightly. "That does not make it special," he said. "It just makes it necessary." The words settled between them, simple but firm. Victoria studied him, her expression unreadable again, but there was a tension beneath it now, something that had not been there before. "You do that often?" she asked. Marcus tilted his head a fraction. "Do what?" "Step in," she said. Without being asked, Marcus considered the question, his fingers resting lightly against the side of his cup. "I do not think about it like that," he said. "If something needs to be done and I can do it, then I do it." A pause. Then, quieter. "That is how my daughter learns what matters." Victoria's eyes held his, and for a moment, the space between them felt smaller, like the distance she usually kept from people had shifted without her permission. "You teach her that?" she asked. Marcus nodded. "I try," he said. "She watches more than she listens." Victoria looked down at the table, her thumb tracing a faint circle near the base of her cup, slower now, less controlled. "Most people teach the opposite," she said. "Look away. Stay out of it. Protect your time." Marcus gave a small, almost amused exhale. "That sounds expensive," he said. Victoria glanced up. "What do you mean?" Marcus met her gaze evenly. "It costs more to stop caring," he said. "You just do not notice it at first." The words landed in a place she was not used to people reaching. Not in boardrooms. Not in negotiations. Not in conversations where she held the upper hand. She did not respond immediately. For once, she let the silence exist without trying to control it. Around them, the cafe continued its rhythm. Cups clinking, low conversations weaving in and out, the door chiming as people came and went. But at their table, time moved differently. Victoria straightened slightly, her composure returning in pieces, but not fully. Not the same as before. "You are not what I expected," she said. Marcus's expression did not change. "You did not expect me," he replied. Victoria held his gaze, then gave a small nod. "That is true." Another pause. Then she added, softer, "And I think that is why I stayed." Marcus looked at her for a moment, not searching for meaning this time, just taking the words as they were. "You almost did not," he said. Victoria's lips pressed together briefly. "No," she admitted. "I almost chose the version of the night I already understood." Marcus leaned back, the chair creaking softly under his weight. "And now?" he asked. Victoria's eyes shifted, not away, but inward for a second, like she was measuring something she could not put into numbers. Then she looked back at him. "Now," she said, "I am sitting across from someone who does not need anything from me." Marcus gave a small nod. "That makes two of us," he said. And for a brief, quiet moment, neither of them reached for their coffee, neither of them spoke, and neither of them tried to be anything other than exactly who they were. The quiet between them did not feel empty anymore. It felt deliberate, like something both of them had agreed not to rush. Marcus glanced at his watch again, not out of habit this time, but out of awareness. 8:17 p.m. Later than he usually stayed anywhere that was not home. He leaned forward slightly, resting his forearms on the table. I should get going. Soon, he said. Victoria nodded, but she did not move to stand. Your daughter, she said. Marcus gave a small nod. Yeah. A faint pause followed. Then Victoria asked, does she wait up for you? Marcus shook his head. No. I make sure she does not have to. His voice stayed even, but there was something firm underneath it, something built over time. She goes to bed knowing I will be there in the morning, he added. Victoria held his gaze, absorbing that in silence. Consistency, she said softly. Marcus shrugged. Stability, he corrected. Another pause. Then, almost as an afterthought, he added, it matters more than people think. Victoria looked down at her hands for a moment, fingers resting still now, no longer tracing circles or edges. Most people I know, she said slowly, build their lives around unpredictability. Marcus gave a slight nod. That sounds like a choice, he said. Victoria looked back up. Sometimes, she replied. Sometimes it is just what happens when everything depends on you. Marcus studied her for a second, then leaned back again, the chair creaking softly under his weight. You mean when everything depends on the version of you that people expect, he said. Victoria did not answer right away. The words did not challenge her. They landed somewhere deeper than that. Yes, she said finally. Just that. No explanation. No defense. The cafe door chimed again as someone walked in, a rush of cool night air following them. Marcus glanced over briefly, then back at her. That version does not get nights like this, he said. Victoria's eyes held his, and for the first time, there was no distance in them at all. No, she said. It does not. A faint shift passed between them, something quieter than tension, softer than understanding. Marcus reached for his coffee one last time, finishing it in a single slow sip. He set the empty cup down, fingers lingering on it for a second before pulling back. So what happens when you go back? He asked. Victoria tilted her head slightly. Back where? To being who everyone expects, Marcus said. Victoria let out a small breath, not quite a sigh, not quite anything else. I already am, she said. Marcus shook his head once. Not right now, he replied. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Victoria looked at him, really looked this time, and something in her expression softened in a way that could not be undone. No, she admitted quietly. Not right now. The moment stretched, unforced, unspoken. Then Marcus pushed his chair back slightly, the signal clear but not abrupt. He stood, adjusting the strap of his backpack over his shoulder. I should go, he said. Victoria nodded, but she did not stand immediately. Instead, she reached for her coffee, finally taking a sip, as if testing something she had been holding off on. Then she set it down and stood as well, smoothing her coat without thinking. They faced each other for a second, no table between them now, no objects to anchor the space. Just presence. Marcus, she said. It was the first time she had said his name like that. Not from a file, not from a report, just his name. He looked at her, waiting. Tomorrow, she said, her voice steady again, but different now. Do not come in early. Marcus frowned slightly. I do not, he said. A faint hint of something crossed her face, almost like the beginning of a smile. Then do not come in as staff, she added. The words hung there, quiet but unmistakable. Marcus did not respond right away. He just held her gaze for a second longer, then gave a single, slow nod. Not agreement. Not refusal. Just acknowledgement. Then he turned, stepped toward the door, and pushed it open. The bell chimed again. This time, he did not look back. The night air outside was cooler than Marcus expected, carrying that quiet hum of the city settling into itself, headlights stretching across the pavement in long, soft lines. He walked with steady steps, not rushed, not slow, just moving forward the way he always did when something in his life shifted and he had not decided what it meant yet. His hands stayed in his jacket pockets, fingers brushing against the edge of his phone, but he did not take it out. Not yet. Behind him, the cafe door closed, the sound fading quickly into the background of everything else. Victoria remained inside, but the space she occupied did not feel contained by those walls anymore. Marcus reached the corner, paused briefly at the crosswalk as the signal counted down in bright, white numbers. 8, 7, 6. He watched it without really seeing it. Her words echoed instead. Do not come in as staff. It was not an invitation. Not exactly. It was something else. Something that did not fit into the structure he understood. The light changed. He stepped forward with the rest of the people crossing, blending into the movement without thinking about it. Halfway across, his phone buzzed in his pocket. Once. Then again. Marcus pulled it out this time, glancing at the screen. A message. Not from her. From home. He opened it as he reached the other side of the street. A photo. His daughter, half asleep, wrapped in her blanket, one arm curled around a science book she had insisted on bringing to bed. The caption below it read, "She waited as long as she could. Said to tell you good night." Marcus stopped for a second, right there on the sidewalk, the city moving around him without noticing. His thumb hovered over the screen, then he typed back slowly. "Tell her I will be home in 10. He hit send, then looked at the photo again for a moment longer before slipping the phone back into his pocket. The weight of it felt different now. Not heavier, just clearer. He started walking again, turning down a quieter street where the noise softened and the pace slowed. His steps fell into a rhythm he knew well, one built from years of balancing what mattered and what did not. Back in the cafe, Victoria had not sat down again. She stood where he left her, eyes fixed on the door long after it had closed, as if something in that moment had not finished yet. The coffee in front of her had gone untouched again, steam fading into nothing. Around her, the room returned to normal, conversations rising, chairs shifting, life continuing as if nothing had happened. But for her, something had. She reached for her phone, then stopped. For once, there was no urgency in it. No call she needed to return. No decision waiting on her answer. Just space. She let her hand drop back to her side. Across the room, the same child Marcus had helped. Earlier laughed softly, the sound light and unburdened. Victoria glanced over, watching for a second longer than necessary, then looked away. Slowly, she picked up her coffee and took a sip. It was cooler now. Not perfect, but real. She set it down and walked toward the door, her heels quieter this time, less sharp against the floor. When she stepped outside, the air met her the same way it had met him, but she stood still for a moment, taking it in like it was something new. Not because the night had changed, because she had. Somewhere between a missed plan and a table she almost never reached, something had shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to matter. And for the first time in a long time, Victoria Hale did not reach for control. She reached for understanding instead. Morning came quietly, the kind that did not rush but still arrived right on time. Sunlight filtered through the thin curtains of Marcus's apartment, soft and steady, landing across the small kitchen table where a half-packed lunch sat waiting. Marcus stood at the counter, tying his daughter's shoelaces as she balanced on one foot, still half asleep but trying to stay upright. "You are doing that thing again," she mumbled, blinking slowly. Marcus glanced up. "What thing?" he asked. "Thinking too much," she said, her voice soft but certain. Marcus paused for just a second, then finished tying the knot and tapped the side of her shoe lightly. "I always think," he replied. She shook her head, her braids shifting with the motion. "No," she said. "This is the quiet kind." He looked at her for a moment, really looked, then gave a small nod. "Finish your breakfast," he said, standing up. "Bus comes in 10 minutes. She slid into her chair, reaching for her cereal, already focused on something else. Kids moved on fast. Marcus poured himself a cup of coffee, black, the way he always drank it, and leaned against the counter for a second longer than usual. The apartment was simple, clean, lived in, a place where things had a purpose and stayed where they belonged. Stability. He glanced at the clock. 7:12 a.m. Enough time. Always enough time. But today felt different. Not wrong. Just shifted. He reached for his phone, hesitated, then set it back down without unlocking it. Some things did not need to be checked right away. Across the city, Victoria stood in front of a wall of glass that overlooked everything she had built, everything she controlled, everything that moved because she decided it would. The skyline stretched out in sharp lines and clean edges, but this morning, it did not feel as precise as it usually did. Her assistant stood a few feet behind her, tablet in hand, voice steady. "Your 9 o'clock is confirmed. The board wants to review the projections before the call." Victoria did not turn. "Reschedule it," she said. A pause. Small. Rare. To win, the assistant asked carefully. Victoria's reflection stared back at her from the glass. Composed, exact, familiar. But something underneath it had shifted. Later, she said. Not before 11. Another pause, this one heavier. Understood, the assistant replied, already adjusting the schedule. Victoria finally turned, taking the tablet without looking at it, then handing it back almost immediately. Clear the first hour, she added. No interruptions. The assistant nodded, stepping out without another word. The office fell into silence, but it did not feel empty. It felt intentional. Victoria walked to her desk, then stopped halfway, her gaze drifting briefly to the side where a neatly folded coat rested on the chair. She had not noticed when she took it off the night before, or when she decided not to go straight home. Small decisions. Quiet ones. The kind that changed direction without asking permission. Back in his apartment, Marcus grabbed his keys, slung his backpack over his shoulder, and walked his daughter to the door. You coming straight home today? She asked, looking up at him. Marcus nodded. Always, he said. She studied his face for a second, like she was checking something she could not explain, then gave a small smile and stepped out into the hallway. Marcus watched her go, waited until she turned the corner, then closed the door behind her. He stood there for a moment, hand resting on the handle, before letting go. Then he turned, picked up his phone, and headed out. The city moved the same way it always did. People walking, cars passing, time pushing forward without pause. But somewhere between routine and choice, two people were about to step into a version of the day neither of them had planned. Not because something forced them to, because something in them had already changed. The building looked the same as it always did. Glass, steel, clean lines that reflected a version of order most people trusted without questioning. Marcus stepped through the revolving door with his usual pace, not early, not late, just on time. His shoes hit the polished floor with quiet certainty, each step familiar, each movement practiced. People passed him without noticing, some nodding out of habit, others too focused on their own schedules to look up. That part had not changed. What had changed was what he carried into the space. He reached the elevator and pressed the button once, then stepped back, hands resting loosely at his sides. No rush, no anticipation, just presence. The doors opened with a soft chime. He stepped inside with a small group, standing near the back, eyes forward, posture relaxed. Floors lit up in sequence. 10, 12, 15. When the doors opened again, he stepped out into the hallway that always felt just a few degrees quieter than the rest of the building. Controlled. Intentional. The kind of silence that belonged to decisions being made behind closed doors. He walked past the reception desk, offering a brief nod. The receptionist blinked, then straightened slightly, like she had just noticed something she could not quite name. Good morning, Marcus, she said, her tone a little more careful than usual. Marcus nodded back. Morning. He kept walking. No hesitation. No adjustment. Just forward. At the far end of the hallway, the door to the executive floor stood closed. It always did. Access required. Permission granted. Lines clearly drawn. Marcus stopped in front of it for a second, not long enough to draw attention, just long enough to acknowledge the space he was about to enter differently. Then the door opened before he could reach for the handle. Victoria stood on the other side. Not behind a desk. Not framed by distance or glass. Just there, waiting. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The hallway behind him continued its quiet rhythm. The space in front of him held still. Victoria's gaze met his, steady but not distant, composed but not guarded in the same way it used to be. You are on time, she said. Marcus gave a small nod. I always am. A faint shift crossed her expression, something close to recognition, but deeper now, grounded in something she had not named yet. She stepped aside, not as a gesture of authority, but as an invitation. Marcus did not rush to fill the space. He walked in at the same pace he always moved, but this time, the room felt different. Not because it had changed, because he had. Behind him, the door closed softly, the sound quieter than it should have been, like it understood something new had begun. Victoria moved to stand across from him, no desk between them, no files, no distractions. Just a clear line of sight. Today, she said, her voice calm but deliberate. We start without titles. Marcus looked at her, not surprised, not impressed, just present. That sounds temporary, he replied. Victoria gave a slight nod. Everything is, she said. A brief silence followed. Not empty. Full. Then she added, softer this time. But some things matter anyway. Marcus held her gaze for a second longer, then gave a single, measured nod. Not agreement. Not resistance. Just understanding.